Hi, welcome to Biz Jet TV. Today we're going to be talking to Geremy Farrell. Geremy Farrell is a businessman from New Jersey, and he's going to be telling us his story of his journey to private jet ownership. He doesn't own a private jet yet, but he's been using private jets, so he's going to share his experience of how he has used and is using private jets right now. So you hear from him, and you hear of how he's looking at using the private jet in the future and eventually acquiring his own jet. So it's interesting for you to have a watch of this and have a listen, because I know a lot of you come on this channel to find out about private jets because you're thinking of maybe buying an aeroplane, and so I think this would be really of use. So let's get into the interview with Geremy Farrell. Off we go. Okay, Geremy, welcome to Biz Jet TV, and we're talking to Geremy Farrell here, who's talking to us from New Jersey. Great to have you on the show. So, Jerry, tell us a bit about yourself, a bit about your business, and then we'll get into your private jet usage and some of the stories that you can tell us. So, over to you, Geremy.
Great, and thank you so much, Fabrizio. So, name is Geremy Farrell. Currently involved in really two different aspects of business. I'm privileged to have two sectors of business, where one is a product-based business. I'm the owner of a company called Peculiar People, spelled Peculiar PPL, and we make a wide range of products, from clothing to all the way to lunchboxes, where we sell these products primarily online. And these products, the idea is that we create products to enable and inspire people who are peculiar, or peculiar people. Yeah. So that's one aspect of business I'm involved in. Are
your products manufactured in the United States, or do you have them manufactured outside?
Right, so they're manufactured in a variety of different places, primarily in the United States, but we do have a couple of products that's manufactured outside of the United States. Okay. So, that's great, because everything is kind of shipped here to, I'm located in New Jersey, right outside of New York, and everything's shipped here, and then from here kind of goes out from a fulfillment center, and, for lack of a better term. And then also, in addition to the product-based business, I also have, I spend a lot of my time doing consulting. So I do business management consulting for a variety of nonprofits and for-profit businesses, and my clients are kind of located around the United States. And for the consulting, what it allows me to do is my real goal is to allow us to solve business issues that get in the way of business growth. And that can be anywhere from our corporate branding needs help, so we need better logo, better marketing materials, all the way to something more abstract, like we have no idea why our customers don't come back to us. We have a hard time retaining customers, and they have no idea why. So, I come in to kind of help that. And, luckily with these two businesses, my clients and customers are really around the United States. So it gives me kind of the flexibility to work remotely. As long as I have my laptop, my cell phones, and my briefcase, I can kind of set up shop anywhere. And luckily, living in New Jersey, I have 3 international airports and 5 private airports within an hour of my house. So
that's good. Yeah, so tell us, so you came to a point where you were traveling commercial, and then something happened, and that's when you made that transition into private jet flights. Can you tell us that story?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So this happened in 2010. So in 2010, I had a terrible experience on the U.S. airline. The U.S. airline no longer exists. So I can mention the name is U.S. Airways. They merged to, United Airlines. But I had a very bad experience with them, where I had a flight. I was traveling for business. I was working for a company as a consultant, where I was traveling for business, and I had to go to a small airport in Virginia, specifically Charlottesville. And I had a layover flight because there's no direct flight to Charlottesville. So I flew from New York, or from Newark Airport, to North Carolina, and then from North Carolina to Charlottesville, which was great going down there. But on the way back, what happened is that first flight had a delay. So I flew from Charlottesville to North Carolina, and then for no reason that I could understand, U.S. Airways decided to just cancel that second leg of my flight. Ooh. So now in North Carolina, it's pretty late at night, and I'm asking them, like, how can I get back to New York? And they said, well, we have no options until tomorrow morning. So I said, so my options are to sleep in the airport, and they said, yes. So I sat there. I've always been, I've always looked at myself as somewhat of a problem solver. So I sat there at that airport thinking, like, there's got to be a better way. And this was, a couple years ago, a decade ago. And sitting there at the airport, I just started Googling, what are the different options of flying with more flexibility? And I wasn't too familiar with flying private at the time.
Yeah.
And then I, became familiar with flying private jets.
Yeah.
And as I read about it, I realized that flying general aviation or commercial flights, it's like taking a bus, whereas flying private is like having your own car.
Yeah.
And, there are benefits to both. Like, taking a bus is, it could be cheaper in the long run and things like that. But you don't have that flexibility. You don't have that, really the comfort of having everything going on your schedule.
Yeah, plus the bus stop is never near where you are. So you've got to walk 10 minutes to the bus stop or travel an hour to the airport. Yeah.
Right, it becomes a little bit more, convoluted and a little bit more tedious to, now you have to go to the bus stop and then figure out if you're going to walk or, catch a ride with someone else to get to your destination. So I said, flying on regular planes, it's fine, but thinking about just the long-term vision of where I wanted to go in business, I said, flying commercial just won't be able to do it. Having a family and things like that, it'll be very hard to fly to small airports and then be back home the same day. Yeah. So on that day, while stuck at the airport in North Carolina, I said, I have to figure out how to do this private jet flying thing. I was able to find out about this company called Jet Suite. They were relatively new at the time, but they flew on these the Phenom 100 jets. Yeah,
I'm familiar with them. Yeah, they're a very good company. A very good company.
It's a great company, and those jets. I looked at the jets. I said they're small. They're almost like a minivan in the sky, which was
great. they've got the guy that created JetBlue Airlines behind them, and the guy from Zappos.
Right, exactly. So and so what I did is, first of all, I saw that they were one of the cheapest in order to take a short flight to get my feet wet in private jets. Yeah. And then also I looked at the shortest route that I could take with them in order to kind of minimize costs but still get the experience. So I found out that their shortest flight that I could take would be from Van Nuys Airport to Las Vegas Airport. Okay. And that cost me, at the time, it was $1,000. I'm sure now the cost has gone up, but it was $1,000. Yeah. And I booked that flight. And then afterwards, I said, what, I want to really understand how this business model goes, how this flying experience goes. So I emailed the CEO, Alex Wilcox, and I said, I'm really interested in flying private. I booked this flight with your company. By any chance, do you have any time to meet when I'm out there to take this flight? And to my surprise, he said yes. So within a couple months, I flew over to California. Yeah. I met with him. He took, very, very nice guy. He took me a tour around the plane, and he answered every question I had. Yeah. And then the next day, hopped on that plane, flew down to Las Vegas. Yeah. And I said, this is not something this is definitely something that I want to get into. This is
so Jerry, on that flight, were you sharing the plane with somebody else, or was it just you?
Right, so at the time, I was not sharing the plane. I chartered the whole plane, which was just a 4-seat plane, and it was just me in the plane. Okay. I didn't really take anyone along for the experience, just because I wanted to really absorb the whole experience myself.
No, because there are apps out there that do the jet sharing, which I'm deadly against. Because I always say to people, the private jet needs to stay private. You can't get on a private jet, which is already a small airplane compared to British Airways or American Airlines or whatever. You can't be sitting next to a stranger with their dog that keeps climbing all over you, which has happened before. So this was, so you were on the whole jet. It was all for you. Okay.
I was on the whole jet, and actually what happened from there, that was my first private jet experience, and I took a couple more flights with Jet Suite, from New York to Detroit and various places like that. But then, speaking to your point about, a shared plane, I eventually found out about this company called JetSmarter. And again, they're no longer in existence. They had various mergers and they dissolved in other ways. Yeah. But found out they had kind of a business model where they, where it was kind of like the same thing, where at first it was private, but afterwards they had these shared flights where you could, you have a G5 jet and then you have your seat, but then the rest of the plane is literally packed with strangers who, sometimes it could work out well. You get some good business relationships, but the majority of the time, it was a pretty terrible experience because you had, someone there, they had their dog, and their dog is barking at everyone on the flight, and you're stuck on this flight for 5-6 hours going, across country. And it's just not a great experience with them. So I understand why, their business model has to change and they kind of dissolve. But I agree with you fully.
Yeah. Okay, good. So you've had these experiences. So now what are you doing? Your business. Is your business just in the US and Canada, or is your business international now, global, and do you have the need to travel internationally besides just throughout the US?
Right. So my business is primarily in the United States, and that's for a variety of different reasons. I think as of right now, I try to keep my travel to a minimum to the sense that the minimum amount of hours away from home. So this kind of helps well with the private jet experience, where I'm able to fly away but be back home at a minimum amount of time. But right now, my clients are in the United States, and kind of the way that flying works out with my business is that I have some clients that's kind of outside the New York, New Jersey area. So sometimes it does necessitate a visit to them. But kind of where this helps out is now I do a lot of these kind of empty leg flights to become more familiar with flying and also get experience flying on different classes of classes of planes.
Planes, different sizes,
When I get these flights, which is very short notice, and you kind of have to pack your bags within 24 hours and get going. Besides arranging that flight, I would then use my network, usually LinkedIn or just anyone who I know in the area. I'll send them a note, like, I'm going to be in Virginia tomorrow. I know that you're based in Virginia. We have a couple of mutual connections. Are you up for like a business meeting to see how I might be able to help out your business in the future? So it helps with, having those experiences helps with expanding the network, and then, get more clients in that area, and, hopefully in the future have a variety of different clients all around the United States where I can, use a private jet in order to get to those people. Yeah,
you were saying to me earlier off camera that you now combine private jet travel with airline travel, and so you do a combination of both. Could you kind of expand on that for our what people watch?
Absolutely. Right. So yes, I think as of right now, sometimes since majority of my private jet travel is through empty leg flights, sometimes, those are less predictable. So if I have to go to, let's say, Chicago, Illinois, next Thursday in order to meet with a client, I can't just roll the dice and just hope that a empty leg flight pops up. And, it might not be as economical in order to take a private jet flight for that kind of trip where I can just get like a general aviation or commercial aviation flight for, in the order of $200, $300. But I do definitely forecast that in the future that, that there will be opportunities where, my time would be more, number one, I want to maximize my personal time. And number two, I definitely want to, have my own airplane as an asset. It can help in terms of tax deductions and things like that. But most importantly, I get to not have to spend a lot of time potentially being trapped in airports and having canceled flights and things like that. But as of right now, I use the empty leg flights with private jets in order to kind of expand my network. And
so is that the only time, Geremy, that you use a private jet is when you can find an empty leg to where you need to go? Is that the only time?
So there are a couple of instances where that's not the case, but in the majority, I'll say just about 90% of the time that is the case. I try to flight every 2-3 years or so. When it makes sense, when I might have a lot more people with me and things like that. But I'll say in the vast majority of times it's those empty leg flights for now.
Okay, well, let me just explain for those watching to what an empty leg is. So basically, when you charter a private jet, let's say you're in New York and you need to go to Los Angeles, and you're dropped off and you're coming back a week later, what happens is you pay for the flight, for the airplane from its origin all the way to its destination, and usually also back. So if you're going to fly 2 legs, you end up paying for 4. So the charter company has to obviously cover all the costs, or if the airplane is positioning in, then you pay for that positioning flight. But then what happens is when the airplane's paid for, because Geremy's now flown to Los Angeles, been dropped off, the airplane's now heading back to New York, That empty leg is then put on the market thanks to technology today and apps on phones and whatever, and they try and sell that empty leg at obviously a reduced cost. So if that leg usually costs $60,000, but it's already paid for, the charter company will sell it for maybe $25,000 to try and make a bit of extra money on that. But now what a lot of the companies are doing is they're trying to just charge people for one leg. And so what they'll do is if they'll charge maybe, instead of there and back, they'll charge you 1.5 times the price just for one way. And then when the plane lands in Los Angeles, they just pick up another charter from Los Angeles somewhere else. And so that's how they compensate. So this is what the empty leg. Now, it doesn't always work. You always have to be very careful what companies you're using in that. As everybody knows that watches Biz Jet TV, I'm very focused on safety. And I'm very weary about those that put their prices out and drive prices down all the time, because I've seen this happen a number of times. When prices are driven down in aviation, that's when accidents happen, because, you know, at the end of the day, these planes cost a certain amount of money to operate safely. So if they bring the price down, they're going to sacrifice something. That could be maintenance, that could be pilot salaries, which means you're not getting the right people, it could be training, it could be a number of factors. So that's basically what the empty leg is. So in certain situations, it can work. Just be very careful which operator you're using, and make sure you do some checks on that. So Geremy, tell me a bit about the expansion now of your business. Now we're in 2020, beginning of 2020. Everybody's planning for the new year.
Right.
What are your plans to expand your business, and how are you going to use the private jet to help you in this?
Right, exactly. So, you know, as I mentioned before, one of the I use the private jets in order to kind of establish those business relationships. One, I guess, rule of thumb that I have is that I need to make sure that when I take a private jet flight, that I get a business relationship in that flight that will kind of pay for that flight, whether it's in the long run or in the short run. But
makes sense,
you know,
yeah.
So if I take that flight and, you know, I might meet a customer or a client who, a couple years from now or a couple months from now, will end up giving business where, you know, offset the cost of that flight. So then it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But definitely looking into like 5 years and beyond of my business, I definitely, I think I know that within about 5 years, I will, the private jet would be like an essential business tool in order to really be effective in the business. And then I also see that, you know, by now, flying with all the different private jet companies, I understand that, you know, there's ways that the business model could be improved while maintaining safety. So, you know, I think that that's also a business opportunity to, you know, hopefully in the future have, you know, be able to use the private jet as a tool to allow other people to fly on my own private jet. But, you know, I think that definitely going forward and even currently, time is very valuable. It's so valuable that you don't want to spend so. Then flying commercial is becoming more and more cumbersome. You know, I have global entry, I have TSA PreCheck, but it just does not compare to the convenience of being able to go to a smaller airport that might be closest to your home, hopping on that plane and taking a flight. I just took a flight 2 months ago in November, and there was like a lot of delays at the airport that I was supposed to take off from. So the operator called me it was like an hour and a half before the flight. They called me and they said that if we take off from that airport, we're going to be grounded for about an hour or so because there's a delay on departures. They said, but there's this other airport. We could fly you off from that airport and take off almost immediately. And, you know, within that time, 90 minutes before our flight, switched to the departure airport, which was more convenient for me.
This is a private jet operator that you...
Correct, it was a private jet operator.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, I haven't seen them do that with commercial flights yet. That would be
that one. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
But just wouldn't be possible. So yeah, they switched to the departure airport, and you know I was able to get to the airport a lot quicker, switch my planes a lot quicker, and you know be on the ground in my destination before I would have even taken off. And those are just conveniences that you could only kind of get on a private jet.
Yeah, and let me just explain to those watching why this happens, okay, from a technical aspect. Now, when you are operating out of a large airport like JFK, for example, there are what's called landing and takeoff slots, okay? There's parking slots. There's, you know, the air traffic control need to organize things so they have enough parking spaces and whatnot. And also the space in the air needs to be booked. because there's a lot of traffic. So when you operate from a secondary airport, or from a lot of these airports in the US and even in Europe and other parts of the world where main airlines don't operate from, you end up not getting slots for departure. And sometimes you can get some horrendous slots. I mean, I remember sitting in Jeddah once and we had like a 4.5-hour slot. Another time I was in Milan going to Athens and I had an 8-hour slot. Then fortunately I had that removed because I knew people in Eurocontrol because of my past as an instructor with air traffic controllers. So I just made a few phone calls and pulled a few strings and we got the slot. I mean, it just was just lucky I knew the right people at the right time. But so there is a great advantage in flying private jets from secondary airports because you don't get these slots. And so that's exactly what happened with you there, Geremy. I mean, they were obviously, from the main airport, there were slots. From the secondary airport, there were no slots. And you just needed to shift and off you go. Yeah. So that's another great advantage. And it's good that the company offered you that option, which is good customer service.
Yeah, it was great. And I think, just really planning for the future in terms of business is very hard to plan based on a model that is kind of shaky. And I think if you plan on kind of expanding, whether it's domestically or globally, where traveling is a large part of that expansion strategy, it's hard to plan 5 years from now when the business, the commercial aviation business model is changing every couple of years, and in terms of structures, in terms of comfort on flights and things like that. Whereas to me, it just makes more sense to if you're going to plan for something and plan for extreme growth with your company. I've been full-time in doing consulting and doing my products-based business in the last 5 years. Yeah. And just the growth I've experienced in the last 5 years, seeing kind of forecasting in the next half of a decade, the next 5 years or so, I realized that, it's almost essential to kind of plan for a private jet to be integrated in that strategy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it just, as you said, it gives you flexibility. It saves you stacks of time. You run your schedule. You don't look and say, oh, there's a flight at 10 o'clock. I have to get that one. No, you want to leave at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, you can. When you have your own jet, you're in charge. And that's the great advantage, as well as using it to send it out to pick people up, bring them to you, and all sorts of other things that you can do with your own jet. I mean, there's definitely, if you're in that space money-wise, it's definitely the way to go. And you're doing the right thing. Every time you do fly private, you always think, okay, well, how can I have enough meetings on this trip to justify me paying that extra money flying private? And that's the way to look at it. A lot of people just look at the price and they think, oh, it's 10 grand. Yes, no. Well, you're looking at it as, okay, it's going to cost me 10 grand. Let's make sure that the trip actually makes me 15 grand or 20 grand. Right. And that's the way to look at it. And you're doing it the right way. So it's interesting to hear from you about this, Geremy, because you're on your private jet journey. You're on your way to private jet ownership. And in the meantime, you've had some private jet experiences, some good, some bad, which you've shared with us today, which is great. And I thank you for that. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, by the way, for all the valuable educational resources for private jets as I begin on that journey and learn more about it. So thank you so much for what you do as well.
Thank you, Geremy. Hope you enjoyed that interview with Geremy. He gave some great insight there, and I'm sure a lot of you would have taken a lot of value from that. If you haven't subscribed to Biz Jet TV, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. And of course, we are in 2020. We're all setting goals. We want to really 10x our business, as Grant Cardone says in his book, 10x Rule. I did an interview with Grant lately, and if you've watched this interview with Geremy about private jet usage, you want to watch and check this video out with Grant Cardone, where he talks about his private jet ownership and how he uses the business jet to basically grow his business. So that's all from Fabrizio Poli here on Biz Jet TV. Subscribe, please. Comment below. We love to hear your comments on this episode, and also suggestions for future episodes, and give us a thumbs up. And that's all from me on Biz Jet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.